Good afternoon, everyone. It is lovely to see such a full house. Thank you for coming to Concerts in the Barn at our penultimate concert for the 2023 season. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the history of the farm. I know that we've included it in our brochure, and I know that it's also on our website. But for those who are newish to the concerts, I wanted you to have some history, some sense of its history. There are two really major things that happened during the existence of this farm. One, it was homesteaded. That occurred in the early 1900s by a Japanese-American family, the Aseris. And Jizu and his wife came from Japan in order to establish a farm here and got the requisite 160 acres. And they had to have a guarantee, and I'm assuming that was because they were not American citizens at that point. And their guarantor was a family named the Johnsons. The Johnsons lived down on Daybob Road. They still live there today. We've made acquaintances with several of their cows through the years. And they wander across the road and want to play date with Buttercup, our cow. The series established a real life here. They had 3 children, all born on American soil, Isamu, or Sam Aseri, and 2 daughters. They went to the local schools. They all helped out at home. Isamu and his father built this barn. If you look at that pillar, that wooden pillar, you'll still see Jesus' initials carved in there and the date in which it was finished, which was 1913. All went well until, of course, Pearl Harbor. And in 1992, FDR issued Executive Order 9022, which essentially imprisoned all Japanese citizens or Japanese American citizens living on American soil. So the Aseris went off to a camp in Idaho, and at the end of the war, Jizu, who was the father, was so ticked off at the government that he took his family back to Japan, which was an option. In the meantime, the farm went to rack and ruin. The people who were supposed to take care of it did not. They foreclosed on the farm, and the Department of Justice sold the farm for $10,000 in 1950. I have looked through the title pages for the farm that go back to that time, and it is heartrending to see what little was left of the farm when the Aseris departed. Their possessions consisted of a transistor radio, a yoke for a horse to plow the fields, an alarm clock, just nothing of real value. It was just all gone. And for the next 30 years or so, nothing really was done with the farm, or 20 years ago, I should say. Not until the 1970s. It just really kind of decayed. The buildings sloped, and it was just not well taken care of, and certainly there was no industry that occurred here. Well, in 1976, my husband, Alan Eglitzen, decided that he wanted to put on a chamber music festival. And at that point, he was living in the Seattle area. He's from New York. He's from the Bronx. As soon as he opens his mouth, you know it, despite what he thinks. And he had come out with members of the Philadelphia String Quartet in 1960 to become the UW's quartet in residence. And so Alan was very familiar with the area, loved the Olympic Peninsula, and asked local realtors to keep an eye out for some place where he could put on a small festival rather than traipsing off to Europe every summer. So that is how Alan found this farm. And as I said, it was an abysmal shape. So, some of the photos that we took are on our website. And Alan brought his daughter and a violin, and that was it. And they walked into this very barn, and Alan asked his daughter, who was a consummate violinist in her own right, to play her instrument. And when she had stopped playing, Alan came to this area, picked up the violin, and he played, and they both agreed it was a wonderful sound, and they would buy the farm. So that's how the Eglitzens acquired the farm, based on how a violin sounds in this very barn. So it took Alan a few years to get everything going and repaired. And he talks about finding old farm machinery and blackberry bushes that you'd never know was there until you took the blackberries out. But in 1984, he felt that he was ready to open this up to a small public, and so he did. And at this point, Alan was aware of its past history with the Aseris. He did not know it when he purchased it, but local people told him over time about the Japanese-American family that had lived here. And I met Alan in 1984, and I distinctly remember him telling me at that time that he felt like there was a black cloud over this farm because he was living someplace that had once belonged to someone else, and he had it unfairly. Fast forward to 1992. The festival is going strong. We discovered that there are many chamber music lovers in Jefferson County, and we are putting on concerts every summer for longer and longer times. Out of the blue, Alan gets a phone call from Sam Aseri, who is now back living in Seattle, actually from his wife. And the wife says, my husband grew up on your farm. He wants to come and see it. Is there any way he can come out? We were thrilled to have them out here. So Sam and his wife came out for the first visit. And apparently they had tried several times before with previous owners, but those owners had chased them off, thinking that the Aseris wanted their farm back. Well, Sam and Alan got on like a house on fire because the two of them were so much alike. Sam was a few years older, but both of them are just, how can I say this politely? They're both just determined, strong, determined, stubborn men who know what they want, are willing to take risks, don't take any guff from anybody, and are just plunge ahead and do what they want to do. And they became very good friends. And we became friends with his sisters who had also relocated to the state of Washington, and with their son, the Aseri's grandson, really. And we continued this relationship until Samu died, and that was in the late 1990s. We're still friends with the family today. They are happy with what we're done, and the cloud has been lifted to some degree. Now we get up to the 2000s, and Alan is still putting on the festival, but in 2015, he has a stroke and can no longer play his beloved viola. This is catastrophic for him. He's been playing a string instrument since he had learned how to walk as a toddler in the Bronx, and it was devastating for him not to be able to perform anymore. He decided to put on a couple of seasons after that, mostly for young quartets, so that they would have the experience and the gravitas of having a festival name behind their bio. But in 2018, he was ready to call it in. And so he decided to give the farm to me. And he gave it to me because he thought that because I am a horse lover, horse owner, that this would be a good place to keep my horses. I'm not sure they need 53.5 acres, but it was a very nice thought. So as soon as Alan made his decision known to me, I said, well, that's fine, but I'm going to continue the concerts. And Alan did not say a thing, although he said years later, actually he said just this week, you know, when I gave you the farm and you said you were going to continue the concerts, I thought about saying, you know, sweetie, you might not want to do that. It's a lot of work. But I didn't do that because I figured you'd just do it anyway. And I said, yeah, you're right. I just would have done it anyway. So here we are in 2023, where we still have concerts in the barn. It's not known by its original name, the Olympic Music Festival. That is still taking place down the road at Fort Worden under the leadership of Julio Elizalde, a very fine pianist. And we are continuing to do our thing here on the farm. So that's the long and short of it. Alan does not often come to the farm anymore. He is now in his early 90s, and he is getting frail. We were able to bring him out several times this season, but we don't know if that will occur again. I left for the farm. We now also have a home on Bainbridge, and yesterday when I left, Alan gave me a check. He gave me a check for $5,000, which he wanted to use as a match today. And so, even though Alan isn't here in a corporeal sense, his spirit is, and his desire to keep Concerts in the Barn going continues today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have $5,000 guaranteed by the founder, Alan Eglitzen, and if all of you can match it today and tomorrow, then we will have doubled that $5,000 to a $10,000 contribution, made our budget, and we can all have a happy fall knowing that there will be concerts in 2024. So thank you for your patience in listening to this. I just felt like I wanted to share it with all of you today.